406.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 411 from 406. My name is Chewie, and that is my brother from another mother, Mr. Pip. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, although I'm feeling extraordinarily guilty today. I have to come clean right out of the gate because it's been weighing on my angst for a while. But we actually recorded last month. Was it last month? It was immediately following Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It
And
was the 20th. Yeah.
that's right. And unfortunately, I had an issue where I had to take my computer and have it looked at in the Apple store, and they wiped it, which I expected, but I didn't realize that it was the day after we recorded. And my next scheduled backup, which I do as a responsible IT guy, I do back up my computer, but my next scheduled backup hadn't kicked off yet. And I lost like the last 12, 16 hours worth of stuff, which normally would not impact me at all. I don't really do anything on this computer except podcast. And I lost our podcast. And I feel terrible about it. And I'm apologizing to you and explaining, of course, to our fans why it's been so long since we've recorded and released a podcast.
No worries. Shit happens. So the question is, is your PC, did you get it fixed? Is it back up and running? I know it was kind of foobar there for a minute.
It's actually about the same. It's not really much better. It's an iMac from 2019. So it still has a spinning drive in it, doesn't have an SSD. It's before they made a lot of hardware changes to it. So unfortunately, even after a lot of diagnostics that they ran, they couldn't find anything wrong. I was hoping it was a bad drive, something for maybe a couple $100 I could just replace it. But no, I don't have anything. My only option right now is to trade it in and buy a new one, which, I would love to get a new computer. I'm always up for a new computer, but I don't really want to pay for it. And, this thing, which is, a couple of years ago was a $1,200 computer, is now worth about $150, which is just complete horseshit. So I'm probably just going to have to tough it out at this point.
Yeah, it is. It's remarkable how expensive, especially Macs. I mean, how expensive they are, and just how fast, if you want to, you can spend money walking into that store. Yeah. I mean, within minutes, you can spend thousands of dollars very easily. They make it very easy for you to spend your money.
Yeah. And before, I was totally fine with that because, if you're all in on the Mac ecosystem, it's a good one to be in. Everything plays really well with each other. And it's just nice. It works really well. But now if I'm getting to the point where it's just too expensive to replace a computer that's kind of failing after 4 years, that's kind of shitty. And that makes me think, well, geez, I don't know if I want to invest all this money to stay in the Mac world, as long as I have. I mean, I'll continue to get iPhones, but it's a little frustrating when I know I could get a PC for half the cost and probably be twice as fast. And so I don't know. I'll probably still stick with Mac, maybe give it one more run, but it's just too expensive to maintain if it's not going to work. I would not go with another iMac, though. I think at this point, I would probably just create a home office situation where I'd have one monitor that I could both dock my work PC and then maybe a Mac Mini or something like that I could hook up to the same monitor and just switch between the two.
Yeah, I run a MacBook Pro at home, and I mean they're crazy expensive to buy, but I think this is the second one I've had. And I think the first one lasted me a good 6 or 7 years. I mean, you take, now that one, to your point, that one still had an old, a physical drive in it.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what ended up failing was the drive. Right. And so then I went with SSD for this one, and knock on wood, haven't had any problems.
And is it nice and fast for you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I don't, kind of like you, I don't game on it. I really don't have that much on it. Everything that I have is in the cloud. You know what I mean? Like all my programs are in the cloud, most of my storage. And so it's like it's actually got a really relatively small hard drive and just everything is either in the cloud or external. So yeah, it's pretty fast. I have to rely more on my internet connection most of the time than I do the speed of the computer. Now again, I'm not
Yeah,
gaming, and really the only kind of computing that I'm doing is when I'm, you know, doing podcasting and that. But I mean, I do my work on it
sure.
all, no problem. I can do Zoom, I can do, all kinds of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, the only thing I do on it is really the GarageBand stuff, which is the production work behind the
yeah,
scenes for this podcast. And, unfortunately, it takes like 3 minutes just to open the program. And
yeah,
to reboot my computer can take anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes, depending on
yeah.
how much, whatever's going on behind the scenes at that point. And that to me is barely usable. And it's just not really worth it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe with tax season come back, maybe I'll get another computer, but I'll probably try to stick this out as long as I can.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. So let's see. Since the last podcast, we've had Thanksgiving and Christmas. Christmas was just last week, actually, just a couple days ago. You and the girls have a good time. Good
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everything was good. Went
good.
went slightly closer to bankrupt, trying to make sure they had the best Christmas they could. And they got a lot of great stuff. My father came up from Florida and spent a long weekend with us, which was nice. It's always good to have him in for the holidays, him and his wife, and that was great. We got to spend a lot of time with family. And as we were talking about a little bit before we started recording, it was unseasonably warm here, which was amazing. And I'm not one of those people who misses snow or likes snow or ever cares to see it again. So I don't care about it being 50, 55 degrees on Christmas Day here in Indiana. I mean, it's telling for what's ahead for our future, probably in terms of climate change and things like that. But for the time being, I definitely enjoyed the warmer weather. But yeah, how about you? How was your Christmas?
It was good. It was good. It's the first Christmas since I lost my dad, so that was weird. But we spent Christmas Eve with my in-laws like we always do. And then my boys stopped on the way over. They got my mom, and we went to my brother's house for Christmas Day, and it was good. Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that we were missing dad,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was. I mean, it was good. Unseasonably warm here as well. I think it was in the 60s, and so it was. In fact, Mark had his house open, so I mean, it was nice and was nice and it was very nice outside, very warm. Kids were outside shooting hoops and playing baseball, and yeah, no complaints at all. I mentioned to you before the podcast, I actually really like this week in terms of like the winter break. This is my favorite week, the week between Christmas and New Year's, because like all the hubbub, holiday hoopla is done. I hate wrapping gifts with a passion. I mean, I can't even tell you how bad I hate wrapping gifts, and
Yeah.
so once I get to like the 25th, that's kind of my finish line. And I sound Scroogey, but it's just true. I don't want to lie. It's the truth. I hate it.
No,
I hate
it's
wrapping gifts.
terrible. Yeah, it's not fun at all. It's just to know that it's all going to get completely destroyed, in the span of about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I waited, I procrastinated. My wife bought all the Christmas presents and I wrapped all the Christmas presents
Yeah.
and I waited until Christmas Eve night. And part of that was because my youngest was sick and I had to help kind of take care of her. So that kind of delayed things. But I stayed up till probably past midnight on Christmas Eve, and I was so tired and not nearly buzzed that I should have been. I sat through an entire sitting of Christmas Vacation and half of Scrooged, and I almost fell over. I was so tired. I just wanted to go to bed. So yeah, I'm with you there. I cannot stand the whole wrapping presents bit.
Yeah. Did you? I was going to ask you what sort of movies did you watch over this kind of the holiday season? So it sounds like Christmas Vacation and Scrooged.
Those are my
Anything else?
staples.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are definitely my staples. I will not go a season without seeing those. And Christmas Vacation is usually the Christmas Eve staple,
Okay.
specifically when we're wrapping or just kind of winding down for the evening. I didn't actually get to much else. I mean, I watched a lot of stuff with my kids. I was mentioning that my youngest was sick, and she just had the Grinch on repeat like the entire couple days that she was sick, and it's the animated one that they recently put out with Benedict Cumberbatch and Kenan Thompson and a couple other people, which is actually a pretty good version of it. But it's also just exhausting to watch it on repeat. But I didn't watch like Christmas Story. I did want to get back and revisit 8-Bit because 8-Bit Christmas, because we had talked about that, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, you put me on. Was that just last year? It was either must have been last year, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did an episode of the podcast where we talked about our favorite Christmas movies, and you had
Right.
mentioned that one, and I had never seen it. And based on your recommendation, we sat down, the five of us, and watched it, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really liked it too. I wanted to revisit that, but just didn't get around to it. There wasn't as much time for watching movies and stuff this year. But what about you? Did you stumble upon anything new, or is it kind of the same old
No,
fare?
I really didn't. Like I said, the week coming up to Christmas is just chaotic with just wrapping and holiday events. I got done with work. My last day of work for the year was like the 15th of December.
Wow.
And even though that sounds like a long time ago, I feel like I haven't accomplished anything in that. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
been running, and took my middle son to the ski slopes 2 or 3 times during that time. We actually had about 9 or 10 inches of snow about a week before Christmas. And my oldest son still has a basketball schedule. He's a varsity basketball player, so he had a game tonight. So we're still running. Again, it's all good, no complaints. But no, we always watch Christmas Story just kind of in the background. Did watch Christmas Vacation. Have not watched Scrooged yet, which pisses me off because that's like my favorite. We've been watching. There's a show on Netflix or Disney, the Santa Clauses,
Yeah.
with Tim Allen, and it's
Hmm.
really good. It's really enjoyable. We've been watching that. My wife, my youngest son, and I. We've been watching that. And actually today, not a Christmas movie really, but we went to go see Wonka in the
Oh
theaters,
yeah.
which was great.
I
It
liked
was
it. I
out.
saw it
It
too.
was out. I might have enjoyed it more than the original. I don't know. I'd have to
Wow.
like. I think I might have. I just like I sat there just like kind of smiling the entire time, and again I only saw it once, and I haven't even really sat down and thought about it. But I walked out of that theater, and I really totally enjoyed it.
That's great. I mean, I
Yeah.
did see it as well. I took my girls to see it and I liked it. I thought it was good. I was sort of meh on some of it,
Okay.
but I would like to watch it again just to kind of give it a completely fair shot. I didn't
Yeah.
the one the one thing that kind of turned me off, and this was just kind of this is a really stupid gripe, but I hate Hugh Grant. I'm just not a big fan of him.
Really?
And
Okay.
he just seemed like he completely phoned that in. And I don't know. I think that they could have played with that and made that more fun
Okay.
as the Oompa Loompa character, but I thought Timothy Chalamet did a good job, and the music was actually pretty good and kind of
Yeah.
catchy, and we've listened to the soundtrack around here a couple times while we're putting together Legos and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was really good. I'll be interested to see what they do with it. Do they make another
Yeah.
sequel? Do they keep the story going? Do they build towards to bridge the
The
gap
Chocolate Factory.
between
Yeah.
this and the one that we all know and love. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
Yeah. Yeah. It was certainly, I certainly enjoyed it more than the Johnny Depp version. I didn't really care for that one at all. I'm if I'm understanding correctly, I think that one is closest to the book, maybe the Johnny Depp version, but to me that was awfully dark.
yeah,
And I just didn't really care for it. The Gene Wilder one obviously is amazing. I don't know. Yeah, I need to revisit it again. It'll be interesting. It's actually an interesting segue. So the last podcast, the missing podcast, we talked a lot about um we talked about the MCU and is it too big, and Disney, and is there too many Disney movies? And my concern, and that just triggered something that you said, my concern with this is, are they going to do too much, right? Are they going to try to fill in too many answer too many questions that we don't necessarily need answered, if that makes sense? I don't know, but
yeah. No, I mean, there's always that danger, right? Because we all know that's how Hollywood operates. They want to find the next big thing, and then they just want to exploit it and water it down as much as possible. I mean, they don't want to water it down, but that's really the only way to
that's what happens. Yeah.
keep generating content is to take something that's got a lot of substance and just loosen it up a lot. And I There were a couple times where I went to the movies this year that didn't have to do with Marvel or Star Wars or whatever. Wonka was one of them. I actually went to go see the new Godzilla movie. It's called Godzilla Minus One, I think.
Okay.
And it was a short run movie, so they didn't have it in the United States very long because it was Japanese. So it was, as I understand, filmed entirely in Japan. It was subtitled. It was, the dialogue was all Japanese and everything. So it was kind of a true Godzilla movie, but with updated effects and things like that. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was solid and would definitely go back to see
Hmm.
the sequel if they end up making one. So
Well, I don't know if it's a sequel, but I got a preview today for Godzilla X Kong, which I had never seen. That I saw that preview today in front of Wonka. I don't know if it's a sequel to that or not, but it's Godzilla and King Kong, and it looks
okay.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. That one's I think they probably have it separated from like the American versions of the movies and the Japanese movies, and they kind of retell their own stories over and over again. And there's a lot of subtext, whether it's cultural, political, whatever it might be. But yeah, that was pretty good. But it was weird being in the theaters the last couple times and not going to see a Marvel movie. Speaking of
Hmm.
segues, right? Because it has consumed my movie going over the past couple of years because there has been so much content. And here we are at the end of 2023, and I'm not even sure if the Marvels is still in theaters, but I never saw it and I have no desire to see it. I might watch it when it comes on Disney Plus, but like it's not just because of an all-female cast, all-female story. Honestly, I don't really think it would matter which character it was. I think I'm just like, I don't know. I'm worried a little bit about the future of Marvel, and I think that they need to take a very necessary pause and rethink their strategy for the future.
Well, and I think they're going to be forced to with the news that, and I don't even know the guy's name, but Kang got conquered just recently. He was found guilty of some pretty serious stuff. It was like domestic abuse, right? I mean, it
Yeah,
was
Jonathan Majors was, I believe, found guilty on one out of three counts of domestic abuse. And
okay.
I don't really know the details behind it. I mean, I did read up a little bit on the story, but that actually, between our Lost podcast and here, we were all kind of speculating because we knew he was on trial for that,
Yeah.
but there hadn't been anything decided. And since then, they have found him guilty on that. And the real interesting thing is that since then, or immediately following that announcement, Marvel did say that they were parting ways with Jonathan Majors as a character in the Marvel universe. So they are at a bit of a crossroads right now where they're going to have to figure out what they want to do because they were building the future of Marvel around this Kang character, and they could recast him, but will they, should they? I mean, I've got my thoughts, but I'm curious, based off of what you've absorbed in Marvel content that relates to this Kang character, like, do you want to see him come back? Do you think they should recast him, or do you think they should take this opportunity to just completely pivot and go a different way?
Um, so there was a lot of questions there. So which is fine, which is good. I just need to unpack it. So I guess we'll start with should they recast it? Um, and I guess that depends on if Marvel is going to put all their eggs in the Kang basket, similarly to the way they did Thanos. I guess what I will say is, if I remember correctly, Josh Brolin was not Thanos the entire time. It was either another actor or completely CG the first couple times we saw Thanos.
I
Um,
think I do think he was he was obviously completely CG the entire time with like the mocap and all that stuff, but he is the only one to ever have voiced Thanos.
okay,
So
okay,
no other actor played Thanos that I'm
okay,
aware of in the series.
yeah,
I might be wrong about that actually. There could be like a word or two that was uttered in an end
okay,
credit scene
yeah.
beginning, but like 99% of the
I,
time it
you
was
know,
Josh Brolin.
I think, I mean, I think CG is good enough that they can probably do it if they wanted to. I think the problem that what they would have is I think Kang is a little bit more recognizable as a character than Thanos is, in terms of like he's more humanoid than Thanos is. Again, I'm not suggesting that they can't do it. I guess what I will say is, you asked kind of what I have absorbed about the Kang character, and the answer is almost nothing. It's almost nothing. And I think that's partly because I'm just not really engaged in Marvel, in MCU stuff, the way I was with we'll call it the Thanos saga, right? The Infinity Stone saga. Kang was introduced, if I remember correctly, in one of the Marvel shows that I don't even know if I watched it. I don't. So yeah, me personally, I'm not super invested in Kang, and it's not gonna bother me one bit if A, they recast, or B, they completely pivot. It wouldn't shock me if they pivoted based on now the legal trouble with this guy, and B, the last couple box offices. They might be getting worried. So I don't know. It won't shock me if they go that route. I think the smart play for them, from a fan perspective and from probably a money perspective, is if they like went back to what got them there, right? If they played the multiverse card, and they brought back Steve Rogers, and they brought back Tony Stark, and they brought, that kind of thing. I don't know if they're going to do that either, and that might backfire even if they did that too. So I don't know. You said you had thoughts. What are your thoughts?
So I definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying. I don't have, as far as Kang, the character, I don't really care about him. There's nothing about him that intrigues me or that pulls me into his mythology. I didn't read comics growing up, so I don't know a lot of his history or background. If there's maybe a really interesting storyline, but as a character, I could care less, honestly, to this point. As an actor, I'm really disappointed because Jonathan Majors, I think, is really good, and he made that character as interesting as he could have been. And he was, you had mentioned this a second ago, but he was introduced, I believe, in Loki originally, the first season of Loki, and he had a very prominent role in the second season, which just released not too long ago. And it was on its way to going somewhere, but much like everything else that's happened since, Thanos disappeared, hasn't gone anywhere. And I don't know if that's because, well, it's probably not because they knew something was going to happen, because this stuff was all probably filmed and done, long before these accusations, or the allegations, I should say, came up. But I'll say that I don't know how they pivot. I don't think pivoting would be a bad idea, but I don't know how they do it, because they have really put all their eggs in this multiverse basket. And Kang is the one who is, sort of controlling this multiverse, or representing the threat that this multiverse presents. So how do they do that? How do they just pull him out and have the multiverse still be this big plot point that streams through all these movies and shows? I don't know that answer, but I've heard the name Doctor Doom thrown around many times at this point, because I mean, who else is there, right? We're talking about Marvel. They don't have Joker and Lex Luthor level
No.
villains, and they have struggled with establishing good villains, with the exception of Thanos. The individual movies have kind of had just kind of stock, by the book villains, but Doctor Doom has been thrown out there, and that is potentially their way to segue and to try to get the Fantastic Four relevant again in the Marvel universe, which hasn't happened yet. They've tried twice and have failed.
Yeah. And this is I'm gonna have to throw away my comic geek card if I'm wrong. What, isn't Galactus a Marvel character as well?
That sounds like something. I
I
mean, you
That's
could.
terrible that I don't know.
I don't
I'm
have
sure
that
I'm
card,
sure
so I'm
yeah.
not afraid to admit I
I'm
don't know who
yeah, I'm
Galactus
sure
is.
I'm
But
sure comic book geeks out there, and I say that with the highest amount of love that I can, are like screaming at me right now because I don't know that. I'm pretty sure Galactus is kind of a planet consuming kind of godlike creature that is floating out there. Doctor Doom, for my money, would be way better than Kang. Only because again, I know that character, or at least I know who he is. We haven't had a Fantastic Four, a decent one. Well, we haven't had one in the MCU. We've had a Marvel Fantastic, several of them actually, and they've been terrible. Um, so I would like that. Um, I wonder, is Deadpool 3 done filming? I
I,
wonder if
I
they can.
if not, it's going to be very soon, and it is. I think you mentioned this in our
Yeah,
last podcast, but I believe that's the only Marvel movie that is coming out in
in
2024.
2024. Yeah. I mean, I guess if they're going to pivot, I think they find themselves just kind of through dumb luck in a position where pivoting, should they choose to do it, and I'm not convinced they will, but I think would actually be relatively easy only because they have established that the multiverse exists. And because of it, like there's so many realities, and they could very easily just kind of take a left turn, and or they could do they've introduced time travel so they've got time travel at their disposal. They've got the multiverse. They've got, I mean, we've already seen, dark versions of Doctor Strange, dark versions of characters that we know. I, if they want to, I think they could do it relatively easily. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the person who will potentially dictate what the future looks like, other than, of course, Kevin Feige, is probably Tom Holland, because I think he is lined up to be, I mean, he's clearly the heir apparent to the Robert Downey Jr. Crown, in the Marvel universe at this point. Like, I think he's the biggest draw right now of all the characters that are still left. I don't think Thor's gonna be there forever. Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. They're both out of the picture at this point. Allegedly, we'll see what happens. But they need a character. They need a protagonist that they can hang their hat on and say, this is going to be our guy. If we're going to have a bad guy that we're going to build towards, we got to have a good guy to build with him. And I really think that should be Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Now, whether or not he decides to continue his role there, it's tough to say. I think if anything, they may consider trying to squeeze a little bit more juice out of that whole No Way Home thing. And how good that was. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man 3 or a Tobey
Sure.
Maguire return or something like that. And I wouldn't be opposed to it, to be honest. I never really liked the Tobey Maguire version of Spider-Man, but at this point, what else are they going to do? They're going to have to buy some time before they figure out what the next steps are.
Yeah. So refresh my memory, specific to the Spider-Man Peter Parker characters or character in the MCU. Is the last time we saw them at the end of No Way Home when the world doesn't know who Peter Parker Spider-Man is? Like
Correct.
they've been mind wiped. Is that, like, there's nothing that I've missed since then?
No, there's been no Spider-Man anything since No Way Home that I
Okay.
can think of.
And if I remember correctly, at the credit scene of that movie, they introduced Venom back into that world. Has there been another Venom movie since then, or no?
There has not, but I believe that they are making a third Venom movie with Tom Hardy, and they also have made Craven,
Yeah,
Craven the
I saw the
Hunter.
previews for that. Yeah.
That one came out. I have no idea
Oh,
how
did
that
it really?
did. I think it came out.
Oh shit, did that come out and I totally missed it? That's terrible.
Hold
Raven the
on.
Hunter.
So Craven has not come out yet, but they did release that movie Morbius. So that one did come out, and that is
Okay.
another character from the Spider-Man universe. And I want to say that those are both Sony movies. I'm not sure if they're Sony Marvel collaborations or not, but I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're building towards if they're putting all these out there to try to get Tom Holland to come back and do this, but not sure exactly what direction they're going. There's allegedly a third Venom movie slated for November of 2024. but whether or not that's accurate or not, I'm not sure if that's confirmed.
Okay. But even if it is most likely, at least at this point, not MCU material.
Not sure because it
So,
didn't
yeah.
start that way. So there's a
No.
good
Yeah.
chance that it's not. But obviously they could bring it all in. They could make that happen. But that's the property. I think if they're gonna try to capitalize on anything, it might not be a bad idea to do that. But it's like, what are they like? They're gonna have to take all of this year off. Like 2024 is gonna be basically without any kind of content for Marvel,
Yeah.
which is going to be, I mean, Deadpool's going to be out. It's going to be great. I mean, it's going to be the movie of the year. It's going to be the comic book movie of the year for
I mean, that
sure.
movie's going to make a shit ton of money, right?
Oh
It
yeah,
has
it's
to,
going to make a
right? Yeah.
gazillion,
Yeah.
but I mean, they're not putting anything else out. But what's interesting is when you think about it, and I looked this up a second ago, they really only had 3 movies out in 2023 anyways. So they're not reducing, hugely from a quantity perspective. That was Ant-Man 3, Guardians 3, and the Marvels. Those are the only cinematic movies for Marvel that came out in 2023.
Okay.
So they're dropping it down to one, which is a lot less than they've done in a lot of years, but maybe necessary at this point.
Yeah, I guess time will tell, and it'll be interesting to see. Again, and I think we touched on it in the last podcast. I think they are asking too much of the fans if they are expecting us to, in order to enjoy the MCU movies, to also consume all the content on Disney Plus. I think that is too big of an ask for a casual movie fan. I think the difference with the Thanos saga or the Infinity Stone saga was I don't think there wasn't anything other than the movies, right? There was no Disney
Right.
Plus that went into that. Now, granted,
Right.
it was 22 movies, but it was 22 movies over how many years? I think the Disney Plus, the home streaming thing, I think is a big ask for a moviegoer. If you have to follow that stuff.
Well, I would agree. You hit on something that's very key there with the casual fan. Yeah, with the casual fan or with the common moviegoer, they're not going to be able to keep up with all that stuff. I think the fanboys can absolutely keep up with that stuff, but even the fanboys are getting frustrated at this point because the stuff that you have to keep up with isn't really worth keeping up with. There's really nothing that is of any great quality. I mean, the shows are well made, but they're not taking us anywhere. They're not really leading
Right.
any place that helps us understand where things are going. And I'm worried Star
Here's
Wars is going to be doing the same thing.
yeah. So put a pin on that because I want to come back to that. But here's what the Marvel shows feel like to me now. They feel like you're waiting for that one scene that's going to tie into something bigger, but you kind of have to wade through all of. Again, they're well made. I mean, they look beautiful. Like they're not substandard shows in and of themselves, but it's like you're waiting almost for that Easter egg to show up and be like, oh, this is why I'm watching that show.
Right.
And like the introduction of Kang is a perfect example. Like I almost forgot about it. Like it was in the tail end of Loki, right? Or three quarters through or whatever it was. And if you go back to the Vision and the WandaVision show, that was clearly kind of a precursor to that next Doctor Strange movie. And that's the first time that I can remember that if you didn't watch that show and you watched that movie, you were kind of lost
Yeah.
because of where they left Wanda after Endgame, Wanda and Vision. Well, Vision was gone, but where they you would have yeah, there was just a lot missing if you didn't consume that show, and that was a problem for me.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. I mean, a lot of this content is just it's not necessary watching. It's just filler.
Yeah.
And if you don't keep up with it, then you can get lost. And WandaVision was good. I think that was the first show that hit on Disney Plus, and I liked it. I thought it was great because it was artistically done in a very cool way. But the other stuff that has been there is just not really been fruitful in any way. It's placating. It's pushing things down the road. And to your point, one of the things that I really wanted to hammer home is that I'm not watching these shows anymore for the actual content. I'm watching it for the end
The Easter egg.
zingers. I'm
Yep.
waiting for what it's going to connect to next. And that's when you know you have a product that's not very good, is when you're only worried about the bonuses, like the features and the connections to the other things. You're not really absorbing and appreciating the content that they're trying to give you. Because I mean, yeah, I mean, I sit there and watch that Secret Wars show, and I mean, was that what it's called? Secret Wars, the Samuel L. Jackson one, and it was
Yeah.
fine, but there was only a couple minutes of it that I was, I'm worried about how it's going to tie in with something else, or how it's going to graduate into a bigger
Yeah.
picture story. I don't really care about the rest of it. It just doesn't
Yeah.
affect me.
Disney has a serious problem if their entire Disney Plus show, that's what, 10 episodes ish, something like that, right? Can be boiled down to like 1,000-word blog post that you get the information that you need out of that blog post. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if all you need to know is Nick Fury does X, Y, and Z, well, you don't need to watch 10 1-hour episodes to get that. You can read some bloggers' recap of it and you're all caught up. That's
Yep.
a problem.
So true.
That's a problem.
Very true.
So you mentioned Star Wars. Star Wars for me is kind of in that same boat. I loved the first season of The Mandalorian. The latest season of Mandalorian, I never even finished. And it wasn't because it wasn't good, but I just kind of got bored with it. I think we talked about, I really enjoyed the Kenobi series, but only because it was connecting back to what I already knew, right? I don't want anything more or new from that story. And I think that particular show ran the same risk that the solo individual movie ran, was that it was giving me answers to questions that I wasn't asking. Right. And it was kind of interesting, but you're like, yeah, okay, great. I didn't need to know that. Carry on.
Yeah. And that's that they're in. Yeah, I agree. They're in the same boat. They are putting out content that it's like, I mean, it's kind of cool. You're expanding the universe, but what are you building towards? And maybe that's just something that Marvel has ruined for all of us, right? Because you're expecting something bigger and like this huge culmination to happen, and it's just not happening. And I'm kind of sitting here staring at the screen, wondering what Star Wars is going to do for 2024, and it doesn't really look like much. I mean, there's something called Skeleton Crew, which is starring Jude Law. That's going to come out next year. I don't know what that is really.
Is that a movie?
No, it's going to be a series, I believe.
Okay.
About I'm just reading it right now, about 4 lost children trying to make their way home, and is set around the same time as The Mandalorian, post Return of the Jedi. You've got The Bad Batch season 3, which is, I don't know. I mean, that's just part of the animated family of all the Star Wars stuff. There's something called Star Wars The Acolyte, which is a live action debut of the Star Wars High Republic era. So, and I think there's some other animated stuff that's coming out. There are no movies. Well, I'm sure there'll be some video games and things like that. But I mean, that's it. Like, I don't know why I care about that stuff. Obviously, the Daisy Ridley movie's on the horizon, but that's not next year. So we'll see what happens there, or what that turns out to be.
So let me ask you a remarkably loaded and unfair question.
Sweet.
Is Star Wars, the franchise overall, better or worse off since George Lucas sold it?
Oh, geez. It's probably worse.
Impossible question to answer.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like an asshole for even asking it, because
well,
I don't have an answer either.
I will say here's how I would describe it. The build up and the excitement that led up to The Force Awakens, when they announced that movie and Mark Hamill's coming back, Harrison Ford's coming back, Carrie Fisher's coming back, I was so excited about that. Like, I would not be able to sleep in weeks leading up to that movie because I was so excited about it. So naturally it was, it fell below expectations, although I really, really liked that movie. I think it was my favorite one to revisit of the new sequel trilogy. But just getting to get excited about Star Wars again was almost worth this whole thing. Was almost worth Disney gobbling it up and spitting out this meaningless content, because I thought Star Wars was done. I really thought that what you and I knew about Star Wars ended with George Lucas's Revenge of the Sith. I didn't think we were going to get anything else. And so I do really appreciate getting excited to go to the movies again. Like, not just getting excited, but like, I can't fucking wait. And when they showed the first trailer of The Force Awakens, like a year before it came out, I must have watched it 50 times. Like, I was so excited. And that to me was almost kind of worth it. But I'll say that I am also at a point now where I feel like I have to selectively choose to back away from the Star Wars universe, which is not something I ever thought I would have to do, because I'm just not interested in the content. I don't care about these characters. The things that I love about Star Wars are, the people and the stories that aren't around anymore. And I know that they're trying really hard to create new ones, but it's not there for me. And I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to keep watching some of the shows because I'm sure they're going to be decent and they're going to tie into other things. And I'm going to hope that they'll come out with the next biggest thing. But right now, I'm to the point where I'm like, there's going to be a day in the near future where I'm going to opt out of the Star Wars content, and it's going to break my heart. But what do you think? Like, how would you answer that question? Or maybe if you were to answer that question also, is would it be better if George Lucas still had his hands on the reins of this universe? I mean, it's impossible to answer because who knows what his 3 movies would have been.
Yeah.
But it's all speculative.
So that's very speculative. Because we don't know what George would have done. I can only assume, based on the fact that you and I did arguably probably 6 hours about a sequel trilogy. And in general, we shredded those 3 movies in general.
Yeah.
At least the last 2.
Mostly, yeah.
At least the last 2. I don't think if George Lucas made those 3 movies, we would have shredded them the way we did. I might be wrong. I don't think we would, or at least to the degree that we did. So I think, at least for the sequel trilogy, I think I probably would have liked what I'm thinking George would have done more than what we got. I would agree with you that the build up to The Force Awakens was second to only the build up to The Phantom Menace in terms of like my excitement, right? I remember that trailer to The Force Awakens, I believe, came out like Thanksgiving week. And like you, I watched it over and over and over again, right? But I'm also like you, where I'm tapping out of, like, I'm not watching. I don't think I watched 1 episode of Ahsoka. And again, that's not to say I'm sure it's great. I just haven't watched it. And I don't know if that's because I'm 47 now versus 37 versus 27 versus 17, that's probably part of it. But there's just been a lot of kind of mediocre stuff since Disney took over. And again, it's not the political stuff, and it's not the, like you hear a lot of that garbage online. It's not that. It's just like, if you look at like the Book of Boba as an example, I don't like, that was just mediocre television. Like,
I don't remember a single thing that happened on that
exactly,
show.
Right?
I don't remember it.
The only reason I cared about that at all was because it had Boba Fett in it, which was a character from a movie in 1983 that I loved. If that was like the Book of Bob, I wouldn't have cared. It was just right. It was a space western that I just didn't care about. And that's a real problem. Like, you can't, like, if you're going to tell me stories about a galaxy far, far away, long time ago, they need to be good stories still. They need to be. And some of the stuff that's been on Disney Plus lately has not been. And even though I raved about Kenobi earlier, there was probably 3 or 4 episodes that were complete fucking garbage.
Yeah, it was very uneven
It was, yeah.
overall. And it was
So
only really great when Darth Vader was back. That's
exactly
that's
right.
that's really it. But I
Exactly.
will say, going back to the George Lucas thing, I do think, and hindsight's 2020, and fanboys, we can always bitch and moan about this and that. I think I would have been really, really interested, knowing what I know now, to have seen George Lucas's sequel trilogy, because for no other reason that he would have treated the original characters much better than I think that they ended up being treated in these movies. He would have put fucking Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia in the same scene at the same time.
At
There's
least
no
once.
way he would have made
Yeah.
3 movies without having all 3 of them on screen
Yeah.
at the same time. Like, it just, I think he would have had more reference to that. And he would have been making these 3 sequel movies to finish the story. Whereas it was clear that Disney was making these 3 movies
Starting the
to
next one.
finish their story, but to continue the next. And I would have appreciated George Lucas stepping in and saying, no, I'm not telling any more Star Wars movies. This is it. We're done. Like, there's something really sweet and beautiful about the finality of a story. And, unfortunately, in this world of commerce and business, like, that'll never be a reality, because if we consume it, the studios will continue to put it out there because they want our money, and we'll give it to them. Like, that's how business works. And that makes big movie studios, and allows actors and writers and all those people to get paid. But the art does suffer as a result of that. And I really think 3 movies made by somebody who only wanted to make 3 movies would have been much better. Maybe we would have been robbed of Oscar Isaac, because I think he was one of the best parts of that. I don't know that he was written that great, but I think as an actor, like, him and Finn had a really great chemistry. And there would have been there were good things about the sequel trilogy. I should, I know that we both agree to that, but I think that overall they could have done different things, and I would have appreciated more of a sweet goodbye to our characters that we know and love, rather than, but ... the story to be continued.
Yeah, I think we would have missed Oscar Isaac. But when you think about what he really gave us, right? Poe is not, he's one of the big 3 in that new sequel trilogy, but his story is not really all that flushed out. He's effectively a new Han Solo, right? I mean, he's like
completely derivative.
In my mind, not to go back and rehash 6 hours of those podcasts, but in my mind, the best part of the sequel trilogy that we got is Ewan McGregor, like, and Ian McDiarmid. Like, those are of that sequel trilogy. I'm sorry, Ewan McGregor. No, sorry. I'm prequel trilogy. Sequel trilogy. My bad. The problem that I had with the sequels was very similar to what Ghostbusters did. They treated the main characters, the legacy characters, like an afterthought, and that really bummed me out. It really bummed me out.
And I if my buddy Dave's listening, I won't I won't give too much shit to Ghostbusters Afterlife again, but I agree. You can't just bring those guys in for cameos and expect the older fans who were raised on these stories to be okay with that. Like, I'm fully support getting a new cast of characters and seeing them on their new adventures, but I also think that you have to really carefully balance the legacy characters, and it wasn't done well in Ghostbusters. It was done poorly in Ghostbusters. It was done okay to some degree in Star Wars, but mostly thumbs down, I think. And it's just it's really tough to do, and nobody has really grabbed onto it yet.
Let's put a pin in Ghostbusters. I've said put a pin twice. That sucks. I didn't mean to do that.
Did you? But before you put that pin in there, did you see the trailer for the new Ghostbusters movie?
I did, and it looks awesome.
It does look kind of
It
cool.
looks awesome. So
And I
hang on,
hate
let's come.
myself
Yeah, me too.
for
So
that.
let's come back to that because I saw it again today in front of Wonka. So one more thought on Star Wars. So I think I'm actually happy with the way they treated Han Solo. I think he got the treatment that I was okay. I was happy with that, right? He got one movie. He went out in a blaze of glory, the way I think Harrison Ford probably would have wanted to, and then we got him again. We got the flashback force thing, memory thing, whatever it was, with his son in the last movie. I thought that was great. Um, Carrie Fisher unfortunately passed away, so who knows like what they would have done with her. I think they did okay based on the footage that they had, and they had to kind of work around it. Um, I cannot forgive the way they treated Mark Hamill. I just
Yeah.
it really bothers me. It really or Luke Skywalker, not Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. It really bothers me.
I agree with almost everything you're saying. I think I do like the way that they treated Han, but I would have liked a little bit more. I mean, I
Sure,
cannot forgive them for not getting all those characters on the screen at the same time.
at least
So
once.
if they could have waited one movie and maybe at the end of the second movie, which is typically, as trilogies go, the tragedy, right? The second movie is the one that is really fucked up. And then the third one is the sort of redemption and the one where your good guys win. Like maybe kill Han Solo at the end of the second movie and make that the real downer part of that movie. And our heroes have to collect each other and figure out what to do. But I would have liked to have seen them together to have some kind of an adventure. And then maybe the third movie is Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher trying to figure out what to do to beat the bad guys, win the day, whatever the storyline is going to be. But yeah, you and I have gone rounds about that. I agree 100%. I do not like the way they reduced Luke to, basically, well, I mean, they basically did the same thing that they did with Yoda. And that's what a lot of
Yeah,
people's argument is like, well, that was Yoda. He just ran away and took his ball and went home and all that. But that's fine because I didn't know Yoda. I didn't grow up with Yoda. I didn't know his
right.
backstory. Like it wasn't fine with Luke. He was supposed to be Superman, right? Like he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
he was
He was
the one
Luke.
that we were
Yeah,
supposed to look at as being infallible. And I know that that's maybe not a very realistic approach to it, but that was the Luke that I grew up with, and they just totally shit all over that.
yeah.
But anyways,
So
go back to our
so yes,
episodes to listen to The
yes.
Force Awakens, the Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker to hear what we really think on that stuff, because I think that probably holds up pretty well.
Yeah, it's, especially with kind of everything that has happened. So that is go back in the archives. That's let's see, that is episode. Oh, no, that's prequels is episode 69, 70, and 71. That's the prequel trilogy. Let me see where the sequel trilogy is. So that was episode 47, 48, and 49 of the podcast. We did the sequel trilogies, and then we circled back around and we did the prequels
Got it.
after that. So, and that's back in 2021 that we did those.
Wow.
So, so yes, on to Ghostbusters. I saw that trailer again today, and like you, it's bumming me out how much I'm excited about that trailer because I didn't really like Afterlife, and I'm all in just based on the 2-minute trailer of this movie.
Yeah.
It looks great.
I mean, to be fair, to be clear, I did like Afterlife. I liked
Yeah.
the new characters. I liked the story.
You
I
didn't like
liked
the
that they
treatment of the legacies. Yeah.
correct. I like the revisiting some of the elements of the very first movie. I thought that was a fine thing to do, and that's what a lot of reboots, requels, whatever you're calling them, like that's sort of the templated thing to do. It was the legacy characters that did nothing for me, that really bummed me out. That I think that they were under the impression that if they just pulled back the curtain and unveiled them at the end, that would save the day, and it just looked pathetic. I hated it. So they are featured more prominently in this trailer than they were the first time around. So I hope they're part of the story. I don't think they would be a significant part, but I hope that they're part of something, because that would definitely bring it together. And the trailer just looked cool. Like the idea
Yeah.
of the city freezing over and all this stuff. Like I thought that was kind of neat. It's back in New York. I think that's great. That's exactly where it needs to be. I think it was good that they got out of New York for the last movie, but now bring it back and rekindle. Like, let's go back to the firehouse and let's see what's going on there. And hopefully, we'll see some good stuff from Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson and the new characters, which I did like. I thought Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd and the I'm blanking on the actress who played Egon's granddaughter, but I thought she was really great too. And I'm hoping for a good story, a fresh story. I'm hoping that they don't have spray ooze all over the Statue of Liberty and walk around the city with them. Like, I'm hoping they're not trying to grift too much from Ghostbusters 2, because that would be an obvious play. I mean, if I saw Peter McNichol cameo and he is Vigo and all that stuff,
I was gonna say, do we get Vigo? Do they like, is the painting of Vigo in the background of a scene, like that kind of thing?
I hope so. I hope they
could do something like that. That'd be okay.
Nothing else. Like, please don't bring. I don't even know if that actor's still alive, but like, please just keep it. A subtle nod, some kind of a thing in the background. That's fine, but that's it. Like, don't do anything else. There's not a lot about that second movie that I care to remember. I didn't think it was the greatest either, short of a few small parts. But yeah, I'm interested. I'm that'll be one next year that I think will be a good excuse to go to the movies to see, for sure.
Okay, one more topic, or maybe one more topic. We've talked a lot about legacy characters in this episode, and one franchise that has, in my opinion, treated legacy characters very, very well is Scream. And there's been a lot of Scream news recently. I think Scream is fucked. I think we're done with.
I think you're absolutely right. Well, first of all,
we're done with Scream.
Neve Campbell's going to get her fucking payday, is what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, she is. Yeah,
because they just lost the two best reasons to go back to see a Scream movie, in my opinion. They lost Melissa Barrera, and they lost Jenna Ortega. They're both out of the series.
And the director is out now too.
Yeah, he's like, he's like, it's too much. I can't do it anymore. It's not what I signed up for. And so he's gone. So they have no choice. They have zero choice but to bring back Neve Campbell at this point, or just say, we're not making any more Scream movies.
Be done. Yeah.
It would be a shitty thing to end on that note. But maybe this is where they say, okay, maybe we need to end Scream, but let's do it the right way. Here comes Matthew Lillard. Here comes, Neve Campbell. Let's do it up and do it right. Let's go out with a bang, but let's be done with it.
And if they do that, they're going to call it fucking Scream again.
Yeah.
It'll just be Scream 2025 or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So,
of course.
If you're not kind of keeping tabs, Melissa Barrera had some comments on social media about the Israel-Palestine skirmish, and that led to her leaving the project. And then Jenna Ortega, in my opinion, Jenna Ortega stepped back because she's getting too big for that franchise. I mean, it was convenient for her to exit that way.
You think that was it?
But
I don't know. The timing was very suspicious, because I said the timing was very suspicious because I think her announcement that she was not part of it, followed the whole Melissa Barrera controversy by weeks.
I think it's probably very much related, but I think if I'm going to put my Jenna Ortega shoes on, like she's got bigger fish to fry than Scream in her career moving forward. And
you're probably right. Although has she been a part of anything bigger from a cinematic perspective? I mean, she's got Wednesday, and I think that's what she or her people had cited as being the conflict and the reason for her leaving the Scream universe. But I mean, from a theatrical perspective, I mean, she'll get other roles. Obviously, there's not that question in anybody's mind. But like, I felt like this was kind of a big deal for her, and I don't know if she was just really tight with Melissa Barrera, and she's like, this is stupid. I don't like the way that they're treating her. I don't know what's going on, but I feel like it has to be related to that in some fashion.
Yeah, you're right. It
Just
certainly
based on
is.
timing.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I I think just from movie fan perspective, it sucks, right? Because I really liked both of those actresses
Correct.
in those roles. I thought they were great. I thought they were outstanding. What do they call them? The Fab Four, fuck, what was
The
they had
the final
the
four
core
or the
the core
the
four,
core four. There you go.
the core four. Even though we hated the way they referred to them, I thought that those four were great, and that was a really good four characters to move forward. Um, and you just can't continue that story without two of the core four, right? And so
Right.
that's done.
And the two primary, I mean, if we're
Yeah.
if we're saying it that way, right? Because I got to be honest, I don't care about the other two. They probably should have been offed in Scream 6, but
Well, we talked about it. Both of them got knives, one through the
yeah,
gut, and the other one just got like a pin cushion. They neither of them should survive, right?
right.
They just shouldn't have. Yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's really unfortunate that things have worked out that way because we're coming off probably my second favorite Scream movie at this
yeah.
point. I haven't revisited it yet, but only because I'm not sure if it's easily streamable anywhere. But yeah, I mean, I was really hopeful to where this was all going, and unfortunately, it has just completely imploded at this point. I cannot see where they're going to go from here unless they get Nev Campbell back. And that to me isn't really an attraction because again, my second favorite Scream movie was the one without the primary protagonist. It
Yeah.
just, and that says a lot. I mean, I think Nev Campbell is fine, but I think her stint in this role has been, we've done it. Like there's nothing left. And she clearly didn't really want to be a part of it. And the last time she showed up, and obviously she felt like she was underpaid and most likely was, and that's a shame, but it's like who cares at this point,
Right.
unless she's
Well,
going to die or make her the killer, which we've talked about. It's
right.
not, who cares.
But here's the thing, right? So let's just say you're going into 2024 and you're going to come up with a new Scream movie, right? Okay, so you're left with Matthew Lillard, who everybody thinks is still alive. You're left with Nev Campbell, who, to your point, like they're going to back up the Brinks truck and bring her in. You're left with Courtney Cox, and it's with a movie of those three characters, it's just not gonna feel. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's just not going to feel like a full Scream experience, right?
No.
Because let's just say we'll spitball for a second. Um, let's say you kill Nev Campbell at the beginning of the movie. Okay. Let's say you kill Stu at the beginning of the movie too, right? Okay. Well, now you're left with Courtney Cox in a who done it, trying to figure out who killed everybody, right? And it's all brand new characters that you never heard of, like, so nobody cares about that. If you make Nev Campbell the killer, okay, fine. You know what I mean? Like
They won't.
it just you just don't care. There's
Right.
just not enough pieces there of people that you care about. And yeah, if it were me at this point, I'd take like 10 years off and reboot it without Nev Campbell, without Matthew Lillard, without Courtney Cox, and start over. And even that doesn't sound great.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that. I mean, that's what they should do. If I were a studio and I wanted to make money, I would want to, and I knew that I was going to do the reboot option, I would kill this off. I would do something, I would do one more finale of some kind, bring Nev Campbell back, do some kind of thing. I wouldn't make her they're not going to make her the killer, so that's not even an option
No.
because that would require another sequel that she wouldn't want to be in. I would kill Courtney Cox. I would make her the Drew Barrymore. I would kill her right away and make it about Nev Campbell throughout the whole movie. Like let's not focus on a cast of like 8 different people that I don't know. Let's make this about Nev Campbell and maybe bring back whoever, Hayden Panettiere, whoever is still alive from
Oh,
the
that's right.
previous
She's
movies.
alive. Yeah.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But let's either fucking nuke Woodsboro because it's full of serial killers, or just finish the story. Do this.
I
Be done.
So I totally thought this is a good way to end the podcast. I thought about you today. So you said Woodsboro is full of serial killers. The valley is full of karate players, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the fucking Wonka verse is full of people that love chocolate.
That's
There's
true.
just not that many people that like chocolate that much. There's
That is
just
true.
not.
Nobody stops while they're walking down the street and turns
No.
their head and is like, "What?
Oh my god,
Chocolate?"
it's chocolate. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I totally thought about you when I saw that today. So okay, well, hey, let's see. This is most likely the last episode of the podcast for 2023. So this is going to be episode 84 if Pip's computer doesn't take a shit. Which
Yeah, you never know.
you never know. Which again, hey, it's fine. I don't care because I get to talk to you. So you got any plans for New Year's Eve? You got anything good, or just gonna kind
No,
of hang
not
out?
a damn thing.
Yeah,
Just gonna kind of
yeah,
write it out. I'm
yeah.
enjoying this last week of the year, not working,
No
as I
work.
believe
Good.
you are too. So
Yeah.
just kind of take it easy. I'm gonna go see. I actually got it's not New Year's Eve, but like rolling up to it on Friday night. I'm gonna take the girls down to Bloomington. We're gonna see our first IU game together,
Oh, nice.
which is gonna be super fun. I'm very excited. IU's got a. They've got a pretty good team. They've got a decent team. They've got some really talented players, not really any standout leaders, but it'll be a fun opportunity because every time they play and I'm watching the game here at home, I'll take my oldest and we'll sit down and we'll watch them, a little bit because she plays basketball, but they're going to get the full Bloomington IU experience this weekend. We're going to stay overnight on Friday and go down to see them
Oh,
play.
that's
So
awesome.
I'm very excited about that. But what about you?
That's awesome.
Anything to wrap up the year?
No, not. You know what? No, we've been toying with the idea of going to Pittsburgh for New Year's Eve and just kind of like just renting a hotel and just kind of hanging out down in the
Yeah.
city, just the five of us. But yeah, even that, it's going to be relatively low key. I'm going back to work on the second, so I've had
Yeah.
my couple 2.5 weeks off. Yeah, and I'm looking forward. One last thing. It's almost Royal Rumble season. It's
No.
it's almost the road to WrestleMania. So since we've chatted, I guess the biggest thing, right, is CM Punk is back in the WWE.
Yes.
That happened at Survivor Series, which Survivor Series we talked about in the last podcast, which we lost. Um, Overall, it was a good show, but I
True.
just don't care about like tag team multi-man wrestling. So like the matches themselves were meh, but Punk coming back was awesome. Do you have any predictions as we kind of head towards the Rumble, head towards WrestleMania? I'm sure we'll talk about wrestling several times over the next couple months before we get to WrestleMania, but just like where's your head around WWE at this point?
Well, and I mentioned this last time that nobody will ever get to hear, but this is a really smart move on the WWE's part because they've taken what is traditionally the most uninteresting part of their season and made it very interesting because they have brought back a very controversial character in CM Punk.
Yeah.
And all signs are pointing towards him having some kind of match.
One of the big matches, right?
Yeah, probably with Seth Rollins at some point, whether it happens at the Rumble or whether it happens at Mania, we're not really sure, but sounds like they're going to dive into that pretty quick. I have no idea who's going to win the Rumble. I mean, I think Punk is the obvious choice, just like Cody Rhodes was the obvious choice last year. But I also don't think that CM Punk is going to get put up against Roman Reigns. I don't think that makes any sense. Now, maybe, I don't know. Like they could go a million different ways at this point. So I'm not entirely sure because I do think they have to take I think they're going to take the title off of Roman at WrestleMania. I just don't know who it's going to be. I really have no idea. Could be Cody, could be a rematch with him. It could be it could be Gunther for all I know. I mean, like they have some people lined up. It could be Seth Rollins. Who knows? Like maybe Rollins loses the title to Punk and then goes after Reigns at WrestleMania. There are so many different ways they could go with this. The one thing that I'm pretty confident about is that whatever my prediction is, I will be wrong because The WWE is very good at swerving and then making me think that what they're doing is stupid. And then eventually me saying, no, you know what? I do like this. I do. I see where they're going now. What about you? Do you have any predictions?
I still think that this Roman Reigns reign, which at this point is coming up to like the Hulk Hogan level in terms of number of days that he's held the title. In my mind, the only way that makes sense is for The Rock to beat Roman Reigns. And here's
Really?
why I say that. Yes.
Okay.
Here's why I say that. For how many years now have we been talking about Roman Reigns as the head of the table, the head of the table, the head of the family, the blah, blah, blah. Well, The Rock is his older cousin. If anybody's going to be the head of that table, it is The Rock. It's not Roman Reigns. Now, does it make sense in 2023 or 2024 for The Rock to be the WWE champion? Oh, fucking course not. Oh, of course it doesn't. But just from a storyline perspective, like, he could be somebody that could beat Roman for the title. I've been saying for years, and I've been fucking wrong for years, that I can totally foresee a scene where The Rock comes out and says something to the effect of, "You've been talking about how you're the head of the table. I'm the head of the table, blah, blah, blah," that kind of thing. That to me makes sense. I don't know how you get there though. Right? Because I don't know how you get from now until WrestleMania. Because I agree with you. I think you're gonna see CM Punk versus probably Seth Rollins for the, I don't even know what title that is. The World Championship, the WWE.
Yeah.
Which one does Rollins have?
The world, I think it's the world title, but
The World Heavyweight Champion. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. The problem is if you slot The Rock versus Roman, that leaves Cody Rhodes out, and I don't see that happening either.
Right.
I don't see Cody not having a title, and so I don't know. It won't shock me if Punk wins the Rumble. It won't shock me if Cody wins the Rumble. It wouldn't even shock me if The Rock wins the Rumble, who is not in it at this point, right?
Yeah.
That's a long way of saying I don't know, and that's the best, in my opinion. That's the best way to be about wrestling, not knowing.
Yes,
because that's when I love it the most.
Yeah, because the Rumble is one of the funnest events of the entire year.
I can't fucking wait. Yeah,
and to go into it completely clueless as to how it's going to come out is the absolute best experience for sure.
All right. Well, we've rambled along for quite a while now. So, I'm sure I'll talk to you, but I don't know that I'll talk to you with the podcast audience. So, if this is the last time in 2023 that I talk to you with this audience, I just want to tell everybody that I love you. This has been an awesome year. We didn't get to 100 the way we wanted to, but I don't fucking care. I love doing this with you every month or whatever it is. 2023 has been awesome. I'm really looking forward to 2024.
Absolutely. I love you back, and I am disappointed we didn't get to our 100 episodes, but we have something to shoot for 2024. And I think we're going to have a lot of content to talk about, and I'm really excited about that, whether it's movies, wrestling. We got to get back into music. I would love to get back into some top 5 lists, 6 through 10s, whatever we can get into. I think we're going to have some really great stuff, and I'm very excited about it.
All right. On that note, that's Mr. Pip. I'm Chewie. This has been the 411 from 406. We'll talk to you soon, folks. Have a good one.
Aloha 2023.